I stared at the letter in my hands, reading it for the third time. My own parents, threatening legal action unless I returned to salvage what was left of our family business. The same business they'd ripped away from me 6 months ago to hand over to their golden boy nephew. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Let me back up, because this story is about 12 years of my life that got flushed down the drain in a single board meeting. About parents who thought blood was thicker than competence. And about a 22-year-old kid who managed to destroy 3 generations of work faster than you could say financial fraud. I'm 34 now. I've been working in our family's logistics company since I was 22, straight out of college with a business degree and stars in my eyes. Dad started this company in 1987 with nothing but a beaten-up truck and a dream. By the time I joined, we had a fleet of 40 vehicles and contracts with some of the biggest retailers in the tri-state area. Those first few years, I did everything. I loaded trucks at 5 in the morning, handled customer complaints until midnight, learned every single aspect of the operation from the ground up. Dad would nod approvingly when he saw me covered in grease, talking shop with the drivers. "That's my boy," he'd say, understanding the business from the inside out. Mom was the bookkeeper back then, meticulous with every penny. She taught me how to read financial statements like bedtime stories. "Numbers don't lie, honey," she'd tell me, adjusting her reading glasses. "People do, but numbers, they tell you everything you need to know." By year 5, I was practically running the day-to-day operations. Dad's arthritis was getting worse, and he started spending more time at home. Mom still came in for the books, but she was talking about retirement. The natural progression seemed obvious to everyone. Everyone except my parents, apparently. See, my sister Jennifer had always been the academic one. The one who went to law school, married a successful attorney, lived in the suburbs with her picture-perfect family. She never showed any interest in the business. "Too blue-collar for me," she'd joke at family dinners. "I'll leave the truck driving to my little brother." Her son Marcus was different though. Even as a kid, he'd strut around our warehouse during family gatherings like he owned the place, asking pointed questions about profit margins and expansion plans. My parents ate it up. "Look at that boy," Dad would beam. "Sharp as a tack, just like his mother." I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there during Marcus's senior year of college. Suddenly my parents were having these hushed conversations that stopped whenever I entered the room. Jennifer started showing up to family events with spreadsheets and suggestions for the business. Marcus would corner me at every gathering, picking my brain about our operations with the intensity of a detective. "Uncle Steve," he'd say, that confident smile never leaving his face. "Have you ever considered diversifying into freight brokerage?" I wrote my senior thesis on supply chain optimization. I'd humor him because, well, he was family. And honestly, the kid seemed bright enough. A little cocky, maybe, but that runs in our family. I figured he might join us after college, work his way up like I did. Learn the ropes. The family meeting was called for a Tuesday in March. Mom said it was time to discuss succession planning. I walked into that conference room thinking we were finally going to make my position official. 12 years of 16-hour days, 12 years of growing revenue by 300%, 12 years of building relationships with drivers who trusted me like a brother. Dad cleared his throat, not quite meeting my eyes. "Stephen, your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking about the future of this company." I nodded, straightening my tie. This was it. The moment I'd been working toward since I was 22. "We've decided that Marcus should take over as CEO when he graduates next month." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt my chest tighten, like someone had knocked the wind out of me. "I'm sorry, what?" Mom leaned forward, her voice taking on that patronizing tone she used when I was 8 and didn't understand why I couldn't have ice cream for breakfast. "Honey, Marcus has fresh ideas, modern perspectives. He understands technology and data analytics in ways that your generation sometimes struggles with." My generation. I was 34. Besides, Dad added, "He's got Jennifer's brains. That boy's going places." Jennifer sat there smiling, not even trying to hide her satisfaction. Marcus, to his credit, looked slightly uncomfortable. but not uncomfortable enough to speak up. What about everything I've built here? My voice came out smaller than I intended. What about the relationships with our clients? The drivers who've been with us for years? You'll still be involved, Dad said quickly. As operations manager, Marcus will need someone experienced to help implement his vision. Operations manager. After 12 years, I was being demoted to operations manager in my own company. Well, not my company, as they were making abundantly clear. And if I refuse? The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. Mom's smile turned cold. Stephen, this is a family business. Family means making sacrifices for the greater good. I looked around that table at the faces of people I'd worked my ass off for, people I'd missed holidays and birthdays and anniversaries for, people who were now telling me that my dozen years of sacrifice meant less than a college degree and the right last name. I need some time to think about this. Of course, Jennifer said smoothly, but Marcus starts Monday after graduation. We'll need your decision by then. I walked out of that meeting in a daze. 12 years. 12 years of my life, and they were handing it over to a kid who'd never loaded a single truck, never handled an angry client at 2 in the morning, never had to explain to a driver's family why their husband wouldn't be coming home because of a highway accident. That weekend, I made the hardest decision of my adult life. I cleaned out my office, turned in my keys, and walked away. No dramatic speeches, no burning bridges. Just a simple resignation letter stating that I couldn't work under the new management structure. Mom called me that night, crying. How could you abandon us like this? After everything we've done for you, abandon them, as if I was the one walking away from family. Marcus officially took over the following Monday with great fanfare. Jennifer made sure to send me the local newspaper article about Young CEO Brings Innovation to Family Business. There was a photo of him in a crisp suit, standing in front of our fleet with that same confident smile. I'll admit, part of me hoped he'd prove me wrong. Part of me wanted him to succeed, if only to validate my parents' faith in him. But a bigger part of me knew exactly what was going to happen. The first sign came 3 weeks in. Tony Ramirez, our longest tenured driver, called me. Steve, what the hell is going on over there? This kid's talking about installing cameras in all the trucks, monitoring our every move like we're criminals. Then it was Sarah from dispatch. Marcus fired Jim yesterday, said his route efficiency was below optimal parameters. Steve, Jim's been driving those routes for 8 years. He knows every shortcut, every loading dock manager by name. The calls kept coming. Marcus was implementing data-driven solutions without understanding the human element of our business. He'd installed expensive tracking software that the drivers hated. He'd changed delivery protocols that our clients had been comfortable with for years. He was running the company like it was some case study from business school instead of a living, breathing operation. But the real kicker came when I ran into Bill Henderson at the grocery store. Bill was our biggest client, accounting for about 30% of our revenue. We'd been handling his company's logistics for 6 years. Steve, he said, shaking his head, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're not renewing with your family's company. My stomach dropped. What happened? That nephew of yours, Marcus, he came to our office last month with this presentation about optimizing our partnership through innovative cost structures. Basically, he wanted to charge us 60% more for the same service, claiming his new efficiency metrics justified the increase. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. When I told him we'd been happy with our current arrangement, let's say he got a little condescending. Started lecturing me about how traditional businesses need to adapt or die. Bill laughed bitterly. Kid's got balls, I'll give him that. But we found another logistics company that actually wants our business. That conversation haunted me for weeks. Bill Henderson's account alone probably employed 6 drivers and represented over $2 million in annual revenue. And Marcus had torpedoed it because he thought he was smarter than everyone else in the room. I tried to push it out of my mind. I'd started working for a competitor, handling regional sales. It was good work, steady pay, and they appreciated my experience. I told myself I was better off. No family drama, no impossible expectations, just clean business relationships. But I couldn't help watching from the sidelines as everything I'd built slowly crumbled. The second major client left in month 4. Then 2 of our most experienced drivers quit in the same week, both citing management issues. I heard through the industry grapevine that Marcus had tried to renegotiate our insurance policies to save money, not understanding that our current coverage was specifically tailored to protect against the unique risks of our operation. Month 5 brought the first real crisis. One of our trucks was involved in an accident. Not the driver's fault, just bad luck and bad weather. But Marcus had cheapened our insurance coverage so much that we were suddenly facing a massive liability exposure. The kind of exposure that could bankrupt a small company. I heard about it from my former assistant, who called me crying. "Steve, he's in way over his head. Your parents are starting to panic, but they won't admit they made a mistake. Jennifer keeps insisting that growing pains are normal. Growing pains. That's what they were calling the systematic destruction of everything I'd spent 12 years building. But I was done. Done caring, done worrying, done losing sleep over a business that had chosen someone else's vision over my experience. I changed my phone number and moved across town. If they wanted to learn the hard way, so be it." The letter arrived on a Thursday morning in September, exactly 6 months after Marcus had taken over. Official letterhead, certified mail, the whole 9 yards. My parents were requesting demanding that I return immediately to help address certain operational challenges. Operational challenges. That's what they were calling it. I called my old assistant, Maria, who still worked there. "What's really going on?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Steve, it's bad. Really bad. Marcus has been..." Well, the state attorney general's office showed up yesterday. Something about financial irregularities. My blood ran cold. What kind of irregularities? I don't know all the details, but I heard Jennifer screaming at him about falsified shipping manifests and inflated billing. Apparently, he's been charging clients for services we weren't actually providing, then using creative accounting to hide the revenue discrepancies. Financial fraud. The golden boy had turned my family's business into a criminal enterprise in 6 months. "Your parents want you to come back and fix it. They're saying it was all a misunderstanding, that Marcus just needs guidance." "But Steve," her voice cracked, "I don't think there's anything left to fix." I hung up the phone and stared at that letter for a long time. The audacity was breathtaking. They'd humiliated me, dismissed my experience, handed over my life's work to an unqualified kid, and now they wanted me to clean up the mess. The really beautiful part? They weren't asking. They were demanding. The letter actually threatened legal action if I didn't return to fulfill my family obligations. As if I somehow owed them my expertise after they'd made it clear how little they valued it. I called my dad that evening. He picked up on the first ring, which told me everything I needed to know about how desperate they were. "Stephen, thank God. Did you get our letter?" "I got it." "Then you know how serious this situation is. We need you back here immediately. Marcus made some errors in judgment, but with your experience we can straighten everything out." Errors in judgment. That's what we were calling fraud now. "Dad, let me make sure I understand this correctly. 6 months ago, you told me that Marcus had fresh ideas and modern perspectives. That my generation didn't understand technology and data analytics. That he had Jennifer's brains and was going places." Silence on the other end. "And now, after he's destroyed everything I spent 12 years building, after he's turned our family business into a criminal investigation, you want me to come back and fix it? Stephen, this is family." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "Family doesn't work that way, Dad. Family doesn't kick you out when someone shinier comes along, then expect you to come running back when things go south." "But the business." "What business? From what I hear, there won't be a business much longer." Marcus saw to that. I could hear Mom crying in the background. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for them. Part of me remembered being 8 years old, helping Dad wash trucks on weekends while he told me stories about building something that would last for generations. But a bigger part of me remembered sitting in that conference room 6 months ago, watching them hand over my life's work to someone who'd never earned it. "Stephen, please. You're our son. We made a mistake. but we can fix this together. You made a choice, Dad. You chose Marcus over me. You chose Jennifer's approval over my 12 years of loyalty. You chose to believe that a college degree was worth more than experience. Now you get to live with that choice. We'll make you a partner. Full equity stake. We should have done that years ago. Too little, too late. You should have done a lot of things years ago. I hung up the phone and poured myself a drink. Then I sat down and wrote them a letter. Not angry, not vindictive, just honest. Dear Mom and Dad, I wrote, I spent 12 years proving my worth to you, and it was never enough. I won't spend the next 12 years cleaning up someone else's mess just to prove it again. You made your choice. Live with it. Love, Stephen. The news hit the local papers 2 weeks later. Local logistics company under investigation for financial fraud. The article mentioned that the CEO, 22-year-old Marcus Thompson, had been arrested pending charges. It mentioned that the company's founder was cooperating with authorities and claimed his grandson had acted without his knowledge. It didn't mention that they tried to get their experienced son to come back and save them. I heard from Maria one last time, calling to let me know she'd found a new job. The company's finished, Steve. They're selling off the trucks to pay legal fees. Your parents are talking about bankruptcy. 3 generations of work, gone. Dad's legacy destroyed. Everything I'd sweated and bled for, reduced to a legal scandal and a pile of debt. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing that makes this whole situation so perfectly, tragically complete. Marcus really was as smart as his mother. Jennifer had always been brilliant at getting what she wanted. Consequences be damned. She'd maneuvered her son into position to inherit a thriving business, and he'd been smart enough to figure out how to squeeze every last penny out of it before it collapsed. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I think about Dad sometimes, starting over at 68, trying to explain to old friends and business partners how his grandson managed to destroy everything he'd built. I think about Mom, who spent 40 years keeping meticulous books, watching her life's work disappear into legal fees and fraud investigations. And I think about Marcus, who probably learned more about business in 6 months than most people learn in 6 years. Unfortunately for him, most of what he learned will be presented as evidence in his criminal trial. But mostly, I think about that moment in the conference room when they told me I wasn't good enough to run the business I'd given my life to. I think about how sure they were, how convinced that blood and education mattered more than experience and dedication. They were right about one thing, though. Family is about making sacrifices for the greater good. I just never realized that sometimes the greatest sacrifice you can make for your family is walking away. My new job is going well. I'm making more money than I ever did at the family business, and my boss actually listens when I make suggestions. I bought a house last month. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. No family meetings required. Sometimes former clients reach out, asking if I'm interested in starting my own logistics company. The idea is tempting. I know the business inside and out, I have the relationships, and I certainly have the motivation. Maybe someday. But for now, I'm content knowing that I chose my dignity over their dysfunction. I chose my self-respect over their manipulation. I chose to walk away rather than enable their poor judgment. And when I got that letter demanding I come back and clean up their mess, I made one final choice. I chose to laugh. Because sometimes, when your family shows you exactly who they are, the smartest thing you can do is believe them. If you've got a similar story about family businesses gone wrong, drop it in the comments below. And hit that subscribe button for more stories about people who chose themselves over family drama.